for joining us for our third Cook and Serve event. So Cook and Serve is part of Climate Reality, and Climate Reality's mission is to catalyze a global solution to climate crisis by making an urgent action a necessity across every sector in the society. So in this regard, we have a food committee, we have a committee focused around climate justice, we have a committee that's focused only around renewable energy. Now, a small team from Climate Reality's Portland chapter is the Climate Friendly Food Committee. And our objective is to educate ourselves and others about the relationship between food and the impact it has on its climate, be a trusted source of information or evidence-based facts on how food choices affect the climate. And in order to make this happen, we have partnered with multiple organizations in the past, or we plan to have fun events like these, such as Cook and Serve. So the idea behind Cook and Serve is to create some interesting demos that are focused around climate-friendly foods. And the skills or the dishes that we learn during these demos, we plan to use them to cook climate-friendly foods for the shelters in Portland downtown. So with that, for today's session, we have Jesse from the Raven course, and he's going to make churros and papas. So yeah, Jesse, would you like to explain what we'll be cooking today?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All good, perfect. Yeah, so today I'm going to be making chorizo and papas, which is potatoes. The potato dish is going to be pretty straightforward. The chorizo dish is really what I would like to focus on. And I asked this before, but if guys was listening, some people tried the dish beforehand, I heard. Awesome. And you can feel free throughout it too. I know if it gets too hectic, we can figure it out, but and I have to have the chat up too. We can communicate through there. But I like to talk, and I like to have interaction, so feel free to throw questions out. Did anyone have any difficulties or like hit any walls when making that recipe at all? No?
I did. I didn't know what to do with potatoes after I boiled them. I didn't know what that is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then I think I added too much salt. That was the only thing, but the chorizo turned out really good.
Right. Oh, good. That's good. That's great.
I had a question.
Yeah, we'll
just looking at the recipe. So you mentioned we'll be pressing the tofu for 10 to 15 minutes, right? So is that enough for it to absorb the ingredients?
Yeah, it definitely is. Going to be completely honest with you. When I'm making food for myself, I don't always press the tofu. If you're going for technique and you really want to, while you're cooking, kind of learn more of the technique, you can definitely press the tofu. Right around 15 to 20 minutes is usually kind of right around that area. Also, depending on what kind of tofu you end up buying, whether that's extra firm down to the soft. Really, I have some tofu that I actually, like I said in the morning, I really never press. And it still has a lot of the seasonings in there already. So yeah, 15 minutes is totally fine to answer to that question. Anyone else?
I have a question on the pressing because I've never had a lot of success with tofu, so maybe I should be doing this. Are you, my guess is that you're putting it on maybe paper towels to just sort of press out the extra fluid, or you could put it on a sieve? Or Definitely.
So as we start cooking in this demo, I'll actually be going over some of the techniques that you can do for that prep. With the boiled potatoes, to pressing the tofu. There's little techniques that really come in handy for other cuisines down the road if you ever wanted to make your own spice blends for Indian food. Those are little things that are really easy, and it just someone just needs to show you. That's really all it is. Let's get started. If anyone else, and tofu, and I'll get into it more, but I had a struggle coming into tofu in general when I first became vegan. I definitely grew up a meat eater, and I'll talk more about that later. But it is a very versatile ingredient. As the more I got to use it and incorporate it into my cuisine. Okay. Everyone can see this camera too? Awesome. Good,
Yep.
good. Okay. Is there anyone cooking along, by the way? Or is everyone just listening? I just want to make sure so I can adjust my speed. Good. And if I'm talking too fast, please let me know. I have a tendency to do that, so I'm trying to check that. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so with the tofu, with time management wise, I like to press the tofu first and get those spices toasted first. And in the recipe, I have that alternate spice blend where you can just buy the already ground spices and just mix them. That makes more sense if you're doing a bigger scale food. But if you want to kind of impress, we'll go over that. So the tofu, there's a couple different ways. So this is about a 1 block tofu here. This tofu, we got at Ota tofu. One thing I like about this is you can taste a little better quality. And the great thing about Ota, right now the pandemic kind of put that on hold, but you can bring your own containers to the factory. You can eliminate the shipping from the store. You just go straight to the factory and buy the tofu from there. I actually picked this up today, and they just give it to you. And right now they're giving it in a bag, but normally you can bring your own Tupperware. And you can really taste the quality of the tofu too, because it's a bean, and so you can just cut it and you can really taste it as opposed to a really big mass-produced product. So there's a couple different ways to press your tofu. You can put towels down. You can put the towel down here. People do that. You can cover it over. Put something that is a little weighted. So you don't really want to press it, crush it. You want to keep the integrity. So like a plate or two, like a heavy plate. Sometimes a can of beans works. Maybe a plate and a can of beans, something like that. Or what we're going to use here, we have one of these little devices here. So this little tofu press is pretty inexpensive, and it comes in handy. There's a bunch of different versions of this you can find online. All it is just a device that goes in, just tighten it up, and it'll start squeezing. Yeah. So let's get this started. I'll put this in the sink or over a bowl, somewhere, because it's going to be dripping liquid. So you can see I'm not squishing it, because you can really squish it down if you wanted to. You can even go all the way down to break it, but you're just squishing it a little bit just to kind of give a little bit of that right there, and then we'll just set it down over a bowl, and then we'll just let it sit and drain for 10 minutes. If you put it on a rag, do the same thing, just put a plate on it and just let it drain. Again, if you're going to be doing this, I've worked in places where we do hundreds of pounds of tofu a day, so you're not pressing a bunch of tofu. We will be lining them out on these big trays and perforated pans, and we just put some pans over it with a couple cans, and that kind of helps press about 40 or so tofu all at once. And it's only not for too long. If you have a really good quality tofu or something you like, the flavor, it has its own flavor. A lot of people think of tofu as flavorless, which is especially if you never eat it before. And you're used to a lot of heavy flavors, it's definitely going to be a little more muted, but you can do wonders with it. So
Jesse, there's a question. So does it matter if the tofu is extra firm?
It doesn't matter for this dish. This dish here, we're going to be making it into a crumble, and it's going to be cooked. So it's really not going to like, stay in the shape. Sometimes I'll get extra firm if I'm using it for certain preparations, If I want a softer tofu, it's sometimes if I'm making, before I started making like feta cheese, like a feta cheese alternative. Do you hear Carlito bark in the back? Yeah, poor guy. Sorry for that. I might have to go say hi to him. He hurt his back recently. We have a dachshund, and if anyone's familiar with dachshunds, they have notorious for bad back. And so he's in his, kind of can't walk, so he's upset. So it doesn't really matter for this dish if it's less than extra.
Thank you.
All right, so what we'll do next is here. I have our spice blend. So this is already all measured out from the recipe. Again, if you're going to be using the already ground, just throw it on into a bowl and you just mix it together. So what I like to do with this is I'll throw it all in. And also a little tip here too, when you have these are smaller cinnamon sticks. If you had bigger cinnamon sticks, you can throw them in a mortar and pestle if you have something like this. If you don't have anything like that, you can also throw it under here, crash it with your pan to break it up. You can put a towel over it and use the back of your knife to break it up, or the butt of your knife too. So you don't have to invest in some gadget that you're not going to use or kitchen appliance that you're not going to use. So when we're toasting the spices, I like to, I already took the seeds out. So all you do is they just come like this. You just open them up and there's seeds in here and you just want to take as much out as you can. And then there's a little white vein in there you just pull out. And then when you have that, you just let it all in the pan right there. And then so all we're going to do is transfer this over to the heat. And now we're going to let that pan warm. And so when we're toasting the spices, we don't want to crank the heat up high because we don't want to, we want to have control over what we're cooking. So whenever I'm cooking, I'm never doing things at a roaring boil or trying to turn the pan hot and run away. I want to have control over my environment a little bit while I'm cooking. So I'll turn the heat at a medium, and then I'll just kind of, once it starts to get hot, the spices will toast a little faster. And I'll just keep my eye on it, and we'll go over that. Did anyone try toasting the spices on the recipe at all? How did that turn out?
Using the spices, it turned out great.
Oh, it did. Nice, nice. Have you done that before? Yeah, it's great. It really, really brings out the flavor and really brings a whole nother level to just using raw spice. For a while, I was working at a restaurant here in Portland for about 5 years called Vindaloo, and it was an Indian restaurant, but it was kind of more inspired by Vindaloo the dish with the two O's. I'm sorry, no, with the H-O, the Portuguese influence. And it really kind of opened my eyes up to learning how to toast spices. I was cooking in a tandoor oven for the first time. I melted my eyelashes together once. It was a lot of fun. So when you're toasting these spices, this starts to get hot. I don't know if you can hear it. You can't really hear it. Sometimes it'll start to crackle. And you have, in here, you have these whole chilies, you have cumin seeds, and a big reason you don't want to crank that heat up is sometimes the littler seeds or the smaller spice will burn faster than the bigger spice. Once it starts to get warm, and if you feel comfortable, you can kind of grab it really quick with the chilies, and if they're warm to the touch, it's kind of right around to where you want to get it. And once the pan starts to come up, I just take the pan off and I can use a spoon to mix it. If you feel comfortable, you can flip it. This is great practice too, for those of you who want to learn how to flip an egg or anything like that. I am a culinary school dropout, so, you know, but I remember like the fundamentals class is, you know, when you're flipping a pan, you're pushing and pulling back. You're not tossing up. You're pushing and pulling back. They used to make us do it with rice. Sit there with rice, you know. So we'll just keep on letting those go. Tofu's going. We'll start the potatoes next. So I'm just going to do a couple of these potatoes. And also a question, how many people, does everyone here boil their potatoes the same way? Because, you know, there's so many people that do it differently. Some do it hot water, drop the potato in, cold water, bring it up. Some people just don't, like, does anyone do either or? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I put everything in and then warm it up. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you can see a little bit, some of these chilies, they're starting to get a little color there. And you'll see some of these start to just kind of get just a little darker. Just keep on going. And what you also can do too is you just, your pan has so much residual heat in here, you don't need to leave it over the stove the whole time, especially when you're doing something delicate like this. It's still cooking in here. So you just kind of just hold it here. You can have a little more control with your temperature, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. Yeah. If you keep the spices on the heat, it's very easy to get it, to burn it, yeah.
It really is. It's so much fun too, learning different spice blends. I mean, from just so many different ones to really minimal, like just a couple different spices, but just the way you use them is can really like just change a dish in a way. That's why when I make some, you know, when I make chorizo like this for myself at home when I have time, I like to do something like this because then I can just make, you know, maybe 2 times the recipe, and I can grind it all up and then just put it in my cabinet and just use it whenever I want. So you'll see the dish is pretty easy to make, but once you get these couple of things down, you can go in the morning and just make it real quick. Yeah. All right. So once they're toasted, what we're going to do from here is you want to stop cooking. So we're just going to transfer them to a plate, like so, and then we're just going to set this down and let them cool. You want to let them cool. They're going to dry out. You don't want to just start making your spice blend while they're still hot. The moisture in there, the heat, it's going to get sticky. It's not going to have a uniform grind when you're done. So let it cool. You'll find out that the chilies in themselves will start getting a little more drier and they're easier to break down as well. Tofu, that's enough, you know, that's good. That's enough time right there. Again, you don't even have to press it if you don't want. I'm very, you know, kind of a recipe should be more of a guideline, not so much a whole book, so to speak. Exactly how to do it. All right. That being said, I'm going to go say hi to Carlito real quick. Poor guy. Going for him. Okay, so what we're going to do is potatoes. I have water here. So what we'll do is to the water. One thing I like about boiled potatoes, you can season your water, you know, in a lot of different ways. Sometimes if I want a potato that has a lot of different like flavors in it, you know, like different levels, I'll have maybe boil it with the cinnamon or something like that. That'll have a different tone. And then you can also throw in maybe an acid in there, like a vinegar, and just has a light touch to just kind of make it, just a little thing there that makes it elevate a little bit. The vinegar helps to break the fattiness on your tongue. And Yukon Golds, the one we're going to use for this recipe, are more of a creamier potato as opposed to a russet potato, which is more mealy, and it's great. Russets are great for like French fries. They're great for frying. Yukons are great for like a creaminess. So we're going to flavor our water with bay leaf, and in this recipe, I have a couple of things here that I'm going to put in that I don't think are in the recipe, but I have an allspice. And sometimes I have this on hand. I know this isn't on the recipe, but it's just a piece of kombu sushi. I'm sorry, kombu seaweed. It's like a natural MSG. So I'll just throw that in there. Again, this is not in the recipe. I just have it here. So with salt, down here. Potato, I'll lay that down. I have to make a mess. All right. Any questions so far on anything? How's everyone feeling? Feel about it? Good, good. Okay. So we'll do this last one here. Okay, so with the potatoes, what I'm going to do is to get that creaminess out of them. I'm going to boil them not so small. If I cook the potatoes and I boil them when they're really at a small size, it's going to absorb more moisture, which will be more of like a waterlogged kind of a feel as opposed to like that creaminess that you want. So what I'll do is potatoes like the size of my hand. So I'll just cut this one in half, around that size, and just do the same to the other, so it looks kind of all around the same size. So they cook evenly. Drop them in the water, turn it up, and salt. So about 3 potatoes. My apologies for not measuring out the salt exactly, but usually for something like this, I'll probably do like 1 heavy pinch. That's about maybe a tablespoon and a half. Maybe do a tablespoon, and you can go from there, So that'll go here. And the reason why you want to cook those potatoes in cold water first is you want the temperature of the water and the inside of the potato to be the same. So a lot of restaurants sometimes will actually get the potatoes so they sit them in lukewarm water until they both reach the same temperature. And then as you turn the heat up, the inside temperature and the outside temperature will go up at the same time. So you have the inside cooked evenly with the outside as opposed to dropping into a hot boiling water. The outside cooks before the inside cooks. You get the mushy outside and the hard inside. That's why we do it in the cold water. Okay. All right. So really quick, I'm going to get the ingredients, rest the ingredients for the chorizo. So we're just going to do onion. Everyone know how to cut an onion? We can do some knife skills. Okay, we'll do that. So there's a lot of different ways. If you've seen like Food Network, a lot of different chefs, they like to, they'll do the way where they'll cut straight down the onion, straight down,
Mhm.
and they'll cut in. That's great, and then they'll chop it, right? The only problem sometimes is our knives always aren't that sharp. And so when you're coming with the blade coming towards your body and your hand, it's a little more risky. So when people do that, I do suggest you tilt it at a little bit of an angle down. But I rather do it a different way. So what I'll do is I'll actually cut off here in a second. I'll cut off the butt. I'll cut off the top here. So I have a half of the onion, and I'll just go all the way across the onion here. And then on my knife, I'll go with the shape of the onion around. So my knife is going like this around the onion instead of going straight down. So I'm here, I put up that in. And as you're cutting too, just always remember fingers back. Usually have your thumb in the back here, fingers here, tuck your knuckles in. Usually from here, take that butt off. And then now I'll have just a half. You can go bigger, you can go smaller. We're gonna go right around this side, small dice. And the knife is coming back to your hand. You're not pushing the food towards the knife. Just trying to minimize any kind of cutting yourself. And then once it's here, I'll turn it to the side, and then I'll just go with the shape of the onion. And once I'm at the end, I'll throw it down, so I'm not trying to struggle with this weird shape. And then we'll and you can save these for, compost, vegetable stock. You can trim around. You can, I don't know, roast them, throw them in a chutney. I don't know. You can do a lot of different things.
Is there a peculiar, or I would say a famous vegan Mexican restaurant in Portland?
I would say there is some staples, that I think a lot of people go to. Los Gorditos is like a staple that a lot of people hit up, because they have the multiple locations and they have the faux replacements for them. Most places now, especially because we live in Portland Metro, have soy curls or some sort of like chorizo on the menu. You can actually be surprised going to food carts, just normal food trucks, and they'll have a vegan on there. So like I would say I personally don't have like a go-to. I go to Los Gorditos, shout out to them a lot. But I haven't really found someone that I go to all the time. There is a couple of places that I really do love that are new. People familiar with La Viganza Taqueria? They are at the Rose Park Food Cart off of Sandy. And they are great people, and it's all vegan. They use Three Sisters hand-pressed tortillas. They do like street-style tacos, and they are delicious. They have a green chorizo they do there. It's all done from scratch. They moved up from LA. Him and his fiance, I believe. Yeah, they're great people. I would say definitely try to hit them up for sure. Support them. Small pop-ups that I've really enjoyed. Mr. Cone's. They have a small pop-up they do sometimes. Has anyone heard of Mr. Cone's before? They are fantastic people, and they do. They're come up from Mexico, and they are rad people, and they do really good. Yeah, I would say those places I would give a shout out to for sure.
Yeah, interesting
I'm
thing
curious.
was, yeah, go ahead.
No, please go.
Yeah, yesterday I actually went to a food cart that is probably the first and maybe the only vegan only food pod. It's called a Shady Pines Food Court.
Oh yeah. How was that? Where did you eat at that food court?
What was it? Fat squash, safframen, and sushi and love. I tried all the three places. I mean, I was full by then. That's why I actually didn't try the dry. I think it was the dry lettuce. That's the third one. Dirty lettuce. Yeah, that's the third. That's the fourth one there. But yeah.
Nice.
I'd like to put in a word for Pepinos because before COVID they had a pretty extensive vegan menu, and my husband and I have been going there every Friday for like 20 years or something, and we always just order side orders. So by doing that, it's a simple way to get completely plant-based meal.
So right now, as things are happening, I'm just doing some of the small prep, just chopping up some, kind of mincing garlic right now, cutting up the onions, little small things. I'll crumble the tofu right now, and we'll do the spice blend here in a second. Yeah, I definitely had a time where I had like that snobbiness too when I first moved of like, oh, I'm not gonna find any good Mexican food and blah 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 blah. And being from, I lived in the Southwest and I'm from California and blah 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 blah. But like, there's people out here doing some really good stuff. And I'm always surprised actually. I don't do a good enough job at like keeping my finger on the pulse of like all the new carts that come up. Like I barely leave my house. We go work and then we go to like the goth club, and nothing's happening right now, so we are just working. So I know there's a lot of really rad places out there that I'm missing too. Yeah. So speaking of Mexican dish too, like chorizo in itself, like the reason why I picked this dish is this is something that you'll find in pretty much all Mexican American like households. You're gonna find chorizo and egg or some form of this, chorizo, which is a little different than Spanish chorizo, which is where it originated from. The Spanish chorizo it's in the casing and it is more of a firm sausage, as opposed to what we call like Mexican style chorizo. It's still in the casing, but usually it's just like a softer, and you kind of just like spread it out and cook it. And it's normally a minced meat that is heavily spiced with spices. So you can have like the stuff we're going to do today is bread, but you can have green chorizo that has spices and herbs that make it green. Let's just move this up a little bit. So yeah, so this dish is like my comfort food. It's my waking up in the morning, if I'm at my grandma's house, my sister's house, chorizo and eggs with some tortillas. That's just it right there. That was that, and hopefully we have some fried potatoes or something with it. And it's just a dish that reminds me of home, just growing up, and simple. The only issue with chorizo is it is normally ground, pork or beef or something like that. So here, really, I'll just show you. I'm just going to crumble the tofu. This is 2 pounds. This is the recipe here. So I'm just going to break it up into not uniform sizes or mush it down. I like to have nothing be that uniform. So like kind of a little bit of a chunk, kind of a small one. And when you fry it up, bigger pieces will have a little different texture than the smaller pieces. So it doesn't have to be all uniformly perfect. So with chorizo in itself, once I became vegan, I felt like it was kind of hard for me. I was like kind of nervous, losing certain foods that I really love. you know, that kind of spoke to me on like a certain level too. You know, because I never really paid attention to food when I was younger, but as I got older, I got into cooking, and so we're like just like right around here, just like that. If you're doing this on a big scale too, you can just have a big masher or something. You can just crush the tofu. It's really easy. Or a blender. If you have a big blender, wherever you just put in a blender with a paddle, and it'll break it all up nice and easy too. Okay.
So how long have you been vegan, and like what's your story? What motivated you to move to vegan?
Yeah, so being vegan, as I'll show you here real quick, these are nice and dry, so they get a little, they're crunchy now, so they'll break up a little easier. You took out that moisture when you were toasting them. I can do it by hand, but I would rather not. I'm going to put it in the coffee grinder, which I stole from my wife. There we go. Yeah, so my journey, also really quick, just to note, once you have your spice grinder, have some sort of little strainer, because you're working with cinnamon sticks too, and different spices. Sometimes if it's too thick, you know, you don't want some of these consommé soup or something like that. So, quick. Can you also hear me over this? Like that already. Sometimes you get stuck on the bottom, so I like to shake it. Here. Have it here. I'll just strain it through here. And again, this is a little longer of a process, but sometimes I'll do like a big batch and it just lasts me for, you know, a month or something. It depends on how fast I go through it. Yeah, so I wasn't always vegan. I started cooking when I was around 21. I came up to Portland, and I at one time thought I was going to be a minister, and I was going down that route, and eventually I needed to get a job, and I was like, what do I need to do? I know I didn't want to do a bunch of manual labor, like too much, even though cooking is a lot of labor. But at that time, I just like started to kind of get enamored by cooking, and I decided just to try it out, and I went all in. And next thing you knew, I was off into Portland, and I've been here a little bit over, 12 years or so. And I was cooking, and my whole goal was to do fine dining and not to own my own restaurant or anything like that. I just kind of loved the atmosphere. There's this book called Devil in the Kitchen. It's Marco Pierre White. He is one of my influences, and he was had this great picture of his black and white, his cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and his hair's all frazzled. And for some reason, I thought that was cool. I grew up a skateboarder, and I grew up listening to like metal music and stuff. So like, I was attracted to that lifestyle. The alcohol and the partying hooked me into that lifestyle a little too much at certain points of my career. But through that, I got to work at a lot of great restaurants. Right before I was vegan, I was actually working at a barbecue cart, kind of doing like full barbecue things. So I'm gonna put all the spices in here. And then this is the oregano and the paprika that's already ground. Put all in there. And then this is just gonna get mixed. On the stove over here, I have a pan that's heating, it's already hot. So once I just get all this mixed, I'm gonna throw the vinegar in here as well. And 3 tablespoons. I'm gonna save the soy sauce and the nutritional yeast for after it's cooked. I don't want to burn the nutritional yeast in this one because it's gonna cook a little longer. And I want that kind of flavor to come through at the end. There we go. And then at the end, I'll also do the same with the soy sauce. I'll throw it in at the end, and it'll pick up a little of that saltiness, but also some of that, umami kind of soy richness to help it. So this is going to be a nice mix like this. And this is all going to go to, I'll throw it into batches. I'll throw some into a hot pan. Just like that into a pan. And that's going to go there. So that's working. We're going to check our potatoes. Doing the knife test. Just poking it, seeing if it goes in, pulling it out, just seeing if it comes nice and smooth. So as those are cooking, we're just in a little bit of a waiting game. Also with this too, this is a 2-pound batch, so it's a little bigger. So sometimes I'll actually just cook just what I want and have it planned out for the week or something, so you don't have to kind of just cook it all at once and then you have to like eat it all, so just kind of have your money stretched too. So yeah, so being vegan, I was working at a barbecue cart and doing like, brisket and all that kind of stuff. And I actually decided to become vegetarian for health reasons. My dad, my family in general, they have a lot of health issues when it comes to diabetes. And it's just, a lot of it's our diet, growing up eating, a lot of pork. And on top of that, I love fast food too. So like, it was not the healthiest at all. So my dad lost his life, about his anniversary was yesterday. It was about 5 years ago. And you can see that it's going now. He, with a lot of my family, a lot of stuff can be prevented. And things like type 2 diabetes is something that we can help prevent. That's an important distinction too. My wife suffers from type 1 diabetes, and I feel like people forget there's a distinction there. And with type 2, growing up, I would eat pig's feet in menudo. I would eat all of it, lengua. Like that's just I loved all of it. And like those flavors I still love. I'm not gonna lie. I don't eat them now, but I try to find them somewhere else. But yeah, so I became vegetarian. My dad, with a lot of diabetes too, he lost his toe, lost his foot, lost his leg, lost his other leg, and he was a hard worker. He was a laborer. He had a landscaping business, a tree business as well. He was a really hard worker and worked with his hands his whole life. And so for him to not be mobile was hard. It's hard to see. He looks like he used to look like one of those little homies. I don't know if anyone's familiar. Big old mustache, all tatted up, old veterano. So that kind of made me change my way of like thinking about eating and just health in general. And at that time, I was getting more into health, and I'm not gonna lie, I started smoking weed, and I was just like exercising and doing yoga, and I was like, oh my goodness, this feels so much better than, drinking all night, and so, so I became vegetarian. Shortly after that, I met my wife, who is actually an animal rights lawyer. She has a LLM in animal law from Lewis and Clark, and has been involved with the animal rights community for a very long time. Which, I didn't know that when we first started going out. But there was a lot of literature around the house, like Peter Singer, and there was philosophy there. There was, books about like climate justice and this. And so like, I was able to have that around me and then kind of pick it up and then just start to get involved. So that's kind of how my journey kind of went. And it was a little easier for me to switch. I didn't know how to cook. So I kind of like had that leg up, with switching recipes and stuff. But since then, I've been vegan for about 5 years now. And like, this is just still cooking. there's raw onion in there. You have the raw garlic. So we just want to saute that out so we get the onions translucent and the garlic cooked. And you're also cooking those spices in that oil too. They're blooming in that oil as well. Potatoes. We're gonna make tortillas too. So, well, I'll show you how to press them. I didn't give you guys that recipe, but that's okay.
So how did Ravencourt form about from your vegan journey?
With being vegan, you know, my wife worked for, she was a humane educator for a while. She worked with a nonprofit called Heart. They're based out of New York. And at that time, she was doing a lot of different things in the community. And one of them being facilitating an animal rights club at Franklin High School. And those young people just, you know, it was animal rights club. So it was very, that, you know, kind of singular, you know, focus, just one focus. And they went to the animal rights conference one year and they realized there wasn't a lot of youth representation at the animal rights conference. And so they were like, there's a void here, let's like step in. And this is, I would say about 5 years ago at this time, to give you a little bit of a timeline here. And at that time, they started Animal Rights Club, and it became Youth for the Voiceless. And we did a lot of like vegan events, you know, in the community. We were at, you know, all that kind of stuff. But as the organization evolved, you know, young people are, you know, they're asking questions like, you know, it's more than just a single issue. It's more than just going vegan. There's so many other things that are involved, whether it's cultural, you know, whether that is financial, you know, these barriers that don't allow everyone to go to a farmer's market, to be vegan, to do this stuff. So, you know, at the Ravencourt, it's not a requirement to be vegan at the Ravencourt, even though that's our, you know, who we are, you know, our core. But we have lead ravens who actually are not vegan. And they are some of the most compassionate people that I know. And they're brilliant. They're really smart people. But, you know, they, you know, we all need to come up with that on our own. We work with young people who don't have purchasing power, you know, in their house. So they just, you know, get what their family makes. So eventually Youth for the Voiceless evolved into the Ravencourt. And the Ravencourt became a chapter model where we just wanted to support young activists. And we were tackling more issues, and we were thinking of things holistically, bringing in compassion, bringing in, thinking about our ethics, you know. So when we're talking about fighting for, you know, Chicano rights, we're talking about fighting for LGBTQ plus rights, you know, it doesn't have to exclusively be one focus. There's a lot of different things that's involved with that. So for us, you know, our compassion is going just a bigger, you know, so it's animals, people, and our natural world. And so that's kind of how the Ravencourt came about. And for a while, we were helping people on a chapter model. So we had chapters in LA, and we just, as far as Canada, Australia at one point, and we would just help young people do different outreach and help outreaches in their communities, whatever that looks like too. You know, everyone's community is different too. So COVID hit, and that kind of made everything pivot for everyone, right? This also, really quick, you can see it's almost there. I'm just gonna let it cook just a little more on the lower heat. But yeah, you can, if you want to have this a little more squishier, you can have it a little more cooked down. It kind of depends on what you're going to go for too. Sometimes I like to have like a bigger piece of tofu now, you know. But if you want to like trick your friends or your family, you can grind it all up to smaller pieces so people don't know it's tofu. There. So during COVID, we had a switch and everything went virtual. So now we started quarantine. We were using a platform called Slack. and now we switched over to Discord. And it's essentially a youth activist community, virtual community. So we do cookie meetups like this, where we do different cookie meetups. We do book clubs. We do we have a club called Nevermore's where we watch horror movies. Not all of it needs to be serious. I feel like these young people are too. There's, you're going into adulthood. There's the climate crisis. There is civil unrest right now. It's like, sometimes we can just watch some horror movies. And we watched Rocky Horror Picture Show a couple weeks ago, and it was great. And we all talked about it. So now we have a virtual community where we still get to help young people in their communities, whatever that looks like. We also get to help to employ young people with Growing Beyond the Recipe, the program that I'm in charge of. That's our food and lifestyle program. And this year we got funding to create a podcast, also some YouTube content, and a cookbook. And, at the end of the year, we want it to be, done, because we're all youth-led. We're just in a supporting role as adults. We never tell any of our ravens, as we call them ravens, any of our ravens what to do or what advocacy they want to do. It's up to them, and we support them, and we help build a community around them. And that's like kind of our secret success too. There's always a lot of people, especially older people, want to tell younger people how to do it. We actually have a program called Zoomers to Boomers, where we have a roundtable with from Zoomers all the way to Boomers and everyone in between. And we have different topics like religion, effective advocacy, the climate crisis. And then we try to create a safe space, a brave space for people to be able to talk to maybe an older person, or an older person to talk to a younger person. You don't get that opportunity a lot. We record those. Those are all up on our website too. Anyone who's interested, throwing it out there. We always need people to be involved. You can message me. I'll put my email address in there. So that's kind of what the Raven Core is now. We're still vegan, but it's about compassion, anti-oppression, and we encompass animals, people, and our natural world. So we do, so that's what the Raven Core is now. Okay, so we're good on time, right? We're almost done with time. Making sure I can put it all together now.
It's 9:35, so
Okay.
we might have to wrap up in another 10 minutes max.
Perfect. So this is the last part here. I'll show you one last thing. Also, with our food program, shout out to people like Burrito Brigade. We partner with them. They do great work, passing out food, kind of exactly what, you guys are doing. You guys are also fantastic. We really love you. Real quick, this is masa you can buy at Three Sisters. It comes already like this. So if you're ever making them at home, you can buy masa harana, and that's just, you add water to it, and it comes into a masa like this, a form. And then all you do, throw it in here. Flip it over. Whoa. Actually, I ruined this one, so so all we're going to do also with the potatoes, I'll show you here in a second. All right. So these presses, they get it nice and flat like that, and then we'll throw it on our grill, and then it will just cook up real fast. And then we're just going to add all of our filling inside that tortilla. So this is what it will look like when you have it done. So your chorizo is done. This is the recipe that we made here. I have one potato here. Got tortillas here. So the chorizo like this, you can just serve it by itself. You can serve it with eggs. You can serve it how we're going to do with potatoes. All we're doing here is just throwing the meat. Throw it in there like that. And we just mix it up here. And then if you're doing this in a tortilla, yeah, you just have to all line them up. And you can in a big bowl, mix up all of your potato, all of your chorizo, and then that way you don't have to do 2 steps and just fill the burritos and wrap them. That's it. Or just put them in the plate. All right. Any questions on anything else about the food at all? You know, everyone's ready.
Yeah, I had a question. I've never worked with those dried chilies before. How hot are they, spice-wise, spicy?
They're not that hot. It depends on what kind you get. And the key there is to take the seed out.
Okay.
And that's really where most of that capsaicin is. So you want to take the seed out, and the vein is what they call it on the inside. You'll just see it. It's like a dried little inside skin that holds the seeds on there. It comes out really easily when you pull it.
Okay.
And you can adjust the chili too. You know, if you just want to use a little piece, or you can even use no chili. You know, just kind of mess around with, you know, making your chorizo spiceless. You know, I think I always like everyone's interpretation of it too.
Yeah, thank you.
Jesse, I made the recipe with the chorizo or chorizo, and I think I put too much salt because I was kind of making my own spice blend. So 2 tablespoons of salt and the soy sauce. It's good, but it got really salty. So.
Okay. Yeah, if it's a little too salty, yeah, I mean, one thing that really helps if you have another block of tofu, you can crumble that in there. I know, you know, kind of bulk it out and dilute the salt a little bit. You know, it's one thing maybe, you know, if that does happen again. This is pretty much what it looks like when you have it in there. So these are chorizo and potato tacos, like that. That's just the green sauce I made earlier for our dinner tonight. But yeah,